Is it? There we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Doc and Queenie Bible Trivia. Good evening, Queenie.
Good evening, Doc. How is your fantastic Thursday going today?
It was a busy gardening day because we actually had a break in the weather. So I've been gardening for hours.
Woo! Yeah, in Kansas City, it's always amazing. I've been all over the globe today, and it's always interesting to ask people about their weather. Australia is starting their winter, and Las Vegas and Arizona are sweltering. So you just never know what you're going to get when you visit with friends across the globe in a networking environment, that's for sure.
This is true. This is true. So what are we? I know I wasn't here that last week, but how far did we get in Genesis? I'm guessing you probably continued from where we left off.
Yes, we did. Um, it looks like, and let's see if I can do this. Okay. We'll be starting tonight in Genesis 28.
28. All right.
And we'd like to thank Debbie Miller again for
Yes.
helping out last week. That was super fun to be able to have her here. She's one of our dynamic, faithful friends on purpose. And Debbie, if you're listening live or on the replay, we thank you for helping. All right, Doc, are you ready to roll?
I'm ready to rock and roll, Queenie.
All right, we are starting with Genesis chapter 28, and here we go. Isaac told Jacob not to take a wife from Israel, Canaan, Neptune, or Jerusalem. Isaac told Jacob not to take a wife from Israel, Canaan, Neptune, or Jerusalem.
Genesis 28, verse 1. Then Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and directed him, "You must not take a wife from the Canaanite women."
Isaac told Jacob to take a daughter of this man for a wife: Laban, Esau, Joseph, or Noah. Isaac told Jacob to take a daughter from this man for a wife: Laban, Esau, Joseph, or Noah.
Genesis 28, verse 2. Arise, go to Padam Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take as your wife from there one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. Did you get that, Queenie?
Seriously, I was trying to follow that in the math going, wowza. I will leave the interpretation piece up to you, Dr. Laura.
Thanks, Queenie. That's so kind of you.
What did Jacob use for a pillow? Feathers, a blanket, a sheep, or stones? What did Jacob use for a pillow? Feathers, a blanket, a sheep, or stones?
All right, so that is Genesis 28, verse 11. And he came to a certain place and stayed there that night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. Wonder how that felt.
I was going to say that does not sound overly comfy to me.
No.
What did Jacob see in a dream? A tower, a staircase, a pole, or a ladder? What did Jacob see in a dream? A tower, a staircase, a pole, or a ladder?
Genesis 28, verse 12. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven.
Where did it reach?
I don't know. Where did it reach?
Canaan, Egypt, heaven, or the sky? Where did it reach? Canaan, Egypt, heaven, or the sky? These are the ones I can get all by myself.
Hang on. I just lost my, there we go. Jacob. Genesis 28, verse 12. Mm-hmm. Thank you. I just lost part of it, and then I was trying to catch up here. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven.
Who did Jacob see ascending and descending on it? His brothers, his seed, angels, strangers. Who did Jacob see ascending and descending on it? His brothers, his seed, angels, or strangers?
Genesis 28, verse 12, again. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and the top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. Would that not be cool, Queenie, to be able to see what's going on in the spiritual world?
Just like hop up and peek over and take a little glimpse. Oh my gosh. Who spoke to Jacob? His father, his brother, the angels, or the Lord? Who spoke to Jacob? His father, his brother, the angels, or the Lord?
Genesis 28, verse 13. And behold, the Lord stood above it and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac.
He told Jacob his seed would be as the feathers of a bird, birds in the sky, fish in the sea, dust of the earth. He told Jacob his seed would be as the feathers on a bird, birds in the sky, fish in the sea, dust of the earth.
Genesis 28, verse 14. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad to the west and to the east and to the north and the south. I'm going to stop there because I'm sure there's another question.
When Jacob awakened, he said, surely the Lord is in this place. I will rejoice, and I knew it not. It shall never be forgotten. His voice is heard in the winds. When Jacob awakened, he said, surely the Lord is in this place. I will rejoice, and I knew it not. It shall never be forgotten. His voice is heard in the winds.
Genesis 28, verse 16. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it.
What did Jacob say he would give the Lord if he blessed him? A burnt offering, praises, a tenth, sheep and goats. What did Jacob say he would give the Lord if he blessed him? A burnt offering, praises, a tenth, or sheep and goats?
Let's see. Genesis 28. Is that verse 20?
22.
22. Okay. 22. And this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house, and all of that you give me, I will give a full tenth to you.
That sounds a little bit like tithing. What do you think?
Kind of does.
That's the end of our chapter, Doc.
All right. I can't wait to see what the CEV DCI version sounds like.
Absolutely.
In Genesis 28. So, Genesis 28, Isaac's instructions to Jacob. Isaac called in Jacob, then gave him a blessing and said, don't marry any of those Canaanite women. Go at once to your mother's father Bethuel in northern Syria and choose a wife from one of your daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. I pray that God all-powerful will bless you with many descendants and let you become a great nation. May he bless you with the land he promised Abraham, so that you will take over this land where we now live as foreigners. Isaac then sent Jacob to stay with Rebekah's brother Laban, the son of Bethuel and Aramean. Esau marries the daughter of Ishmael. Esau found out that his father Isaac had blessed Jacob and had warned him not to marry any of the Canaanite women. He also learned that Jacob had been sent to find a wife in northern Syria and that he had obeyed his father and mother. Esau already had several wives, but now he realized how much his father hated the Canaanite women. So he married Ishmael's daughter, Mahalath, who was the sister of Nebaioth and the granddaughter of Abraham. We will just guess those are the pronunciations of their name. Jacob's dream at Bethel. Jacob left the town of Beersheba and started out for Haran. At sunset, he stopped for the night and went to sleep, resting his head on a large rock. In a dream, he saw a ladder that reached from earth to heaven, and God's angels were going up and down it. The Lord was standing beside the ladder and said, I am the Lord God who was worshipped by Abraham and Isaac. I will give to you and your family the land on which you are now sleeping. Your descendants will spread over the earth in all directions and will become as numerous as the specks of dust. Your family will be a blessing to all people. Wherever you go, I will watch over you. Then later, I will bring you back to this land. I won't leave you, and I will do all I have promised." Jacob woke suddenly and thought, "The Lord is in this place, and I didn't even know it." Then Jacob became frightened and said, "What a frightening place! It must be the house of God and the gateway to heaven." When Jacob got up early the next morning, he took the rock that he had used for a pillow and stood it up as a place of worship. Then he poured olive oil on the rock to dedicate it to God, and he named the place Bethel. Before that, it had been named Luz. Jacob solemnly promised God, "If you go with me and watch over me as I travel, and if you give me food and clothes and bring me safely home again, and you will be my God. This rock will be your house, and I will give back to you a tenth of everything you give me." I find that interesting. It's like conditional. Don't we sometimes pray that way? Like, "Oh God,
Yeah,
if you do
I'll
this,"
do this if you do that. Yeah, absolutely.
and God knows you're gonna, screw it up or fail or
Oh my
whatever.
gosh, it's not like he doesn't know the next chapter.
I also find it interesting in looking at that on, God is in this place. That kind of comment. Um, are we aware that He's everywhere? I mean, we talk about it all the time in whatever venues we are, and we might even teach about it here a little bit. But how many times do we forget that?
I
He's
don't
He's in.
know how you go outside and not realize he is right there. I mean, everything, the tree, the bird, everything. He is right there. And so I can't even imagine he's in this place. The God winks that happen all day long are credence to the fact that he is surrounding us everywhere.
Yep. Yep. And I was outside, of course, today, like I said at the beginning. And I chose to leave I usually put my phone on and I'll listen to music while I'm at my acre garden. And today I decided, let's just keep it quiet. There was no one around, and
Oh,
just listening to the birds. It was so peaceful. It was so peaceful. And I was pulling weeds and fertilizing and all of those kinds of fun things. I probably did it for 2 or 3 hours before somebody showed up, but it was just so peaceful. The sun was shining, there was a nice breeze, the birds were doing their thing. Yeah, I could do that all the time.
that is magnificent. And quite frankly, to not have music playing, I think would have been much more comforting.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And just enjoying, even pulling a weed. God made the weeds, the soil, the plants. Just the whole experience. It's just. I know I'm blessed to have that experience too, because I know sometimes a lot of people don't live close to the country, and you know, or don't like to go outside. Whatever the reason, but like that just triggered me to think, God is everywhere. God is everywhere.
Amen and hallelujah.
Yeah.
Okay, my friends, we are now headed to Genesis chapter 29. So please follow along with us, whether you're live or on the replay. And we will begin with, when Jacob went on his journey to the land of the people of the east, where did he stop? At a well, in a cave, by a river, in an inn. When Jacob went on his journey to the land of the people of the east, where did he stop? At a well, in a cave, by a river, at an inn.
All right. So this doesn't exactly say that he stopped, but would that be verse 2, Queenie?
Uh-huh. Yes.
Okay, Genesis 29, verse 2. As he looked, he saw a well in the field, and behold, 3 flocks of sheep lying beside it. I think I'll stop there because I have a feeling there will be more questions.
What did Jacob do for Rachel?
Oh,
Moved stones and watered her flocks, fetched her water to drink, fetched water for her servants, filled her pitcher with water. What did Jacob do for Rachel? Moved stones and watered her flocks, fetched her water to drink, fetched water for her servants, or filled her pitcher with water?
Genesis 29, verse 10. Now his son of Jacob saw Rachel, the daughter of Laban's his mother's brother, and the sheep of Laban his mother's brother. Jacob came near and rolled a stone from the well's mouth and watered the flock of Laban his mother's brother.
What did Laban ask Jacob? How his family was, if he would marry his daughter, how long his journey took, or what wages he should pay him. What did Laban ask Jacob? How his family was, if he would marry his daughter, how long his journey took, or what wages he would pay him.
Well, what verse is that one?
This is 15.
15. Okay, I went way too far. Genesis 29, verse 15. Then Laban said to Jacob, because you are my kinsman, should you therefore serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?
How long did Jacob agree to work to marry Laban's daughter? 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, 7 years. How long did Jacob agree to work to marry Laban's daughter? 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, 7 years.
Genesis 29, verse 18. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel.
Which daughter did they agree he would marry? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Delilah. Which daughter did they agree he would marry? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, or Delilah? 18.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this version. Genesis 29, verse 18. Jacob loved Rachel, and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter, Rachel. I mean, we know that they're going to marry. It just doesn't say that.
Yes, yes. After working for the agreed time, which daughter was Jacob given? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, Delilah. After working the agreed time, which daughter was Jacob given? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, or Delilah?
Genesis 29, verse 23. But in the evening he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and he went into her.
Why did Laban say he gave Jacob this daughter? Custom was the older daughter marry first. The other daughter refused to marry. It was a mistake. It was custom the younger marry first. Why did Laban say he gave Jacob this daughter? Custom was the older daughter marry first. The other daughter refused to marry. It was a mistake, or it was custom for the younger daughter to marry first.
Genesis 29, verse 26. Laban said, it is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn.
What did Jacob do to marry the other daughter he loved? Divorced her sister, worked 7 more years, worked 1 more year, worked 2 more years. What did Jacob do to marry the other daughter he loved? Divorced her sister, worked 7 more years, worked 1 more year, worked 2 more years.
Genesis 29, verse 27. Complete the week of this one, and we will give you the other also in return for serving me another 7 years. It's pretty nasty.
Oh my goodness. Which woman was barren? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, or Delilah? Which woman was barren? Rebecca, Rachel, Leah, or Delilah?
Genesis 29, verse 31. When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren.
Ugh. What did Jacob's wife hope each time she had a child? It would be a boy It would be a girl. She would have twins, that Jacob would love her. What did Jacob's wife hope each time she had a child? It would be a boy. It would be a girl. She would have twins, or that Jacob would love her.
Genesis 29, verse 32. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me.
A lovely way to end chapter 29, Doc.
Yeah. Family dysfunction.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Genesis 29 in the contemporary English version reads Jacob arrives at Laban's home. As Jacob continued on his way to the east, he looked out in a field and saw a well where shepherds took their sheep for water. 3 flocks of sheep were lying around the well, which was covered with a large rock. Shepherds would roll the rock away when all their sheep had gathered there. Then, after the sheep had been watered, the shepherds would roll the rock back over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, where are you from? We're from Haran, they answered. Then he asked, do you know Nahor's grandson Laban? Yes, we do, they replied. How is he? Jacob asked. He's fine, they answered, and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep. Jacob told them, look, the sun is still high up in the sky, and it's too early to bring in the rest of the flocks. Water your sheep and take them back to the pasture. But they replied, we can't do that until they all get here, and the rock has been rolled away from the well. While Jacob was still talking with the men, his cousin Rachel came up with her father's sheep. When Jacob saw her and his uncle's sheep, he rolled the rock away and watered the sheep. He then kissed Rachel and started crying because he was so happy. He told her that he was the son of her aunt Rebekah, and she ran and told her father about him. As soon as Laban heard the news, he ran out to meet Jacob. He hugged and kissed him and brought him to his home, where Jacob told him everything that had happened. Laban said, you are my nephew, and you are like one of my own family. Jacob marries Leah and Rachel. After Jacob had been there for a month, Laban said to him, you shouldn't have to work without pay just because you are a relative of mine. What do you want me to give you? Laban had 2 daughters. Leah was older than Rachel, but her eyes didn't sparkle, while Rachel was beautiful and had a good figure. Since Jacob was in love with Rachel, he answered, if you will let me marry Rachel, I'll work 7 years for you. Laban replied, it's better for me to let you marry Rachel than for someone else to have her, so stay and work for me. Jacob worked 7 years for Laban, but the time seemed only like a few days because he loved Rachel so much. Jacob said to Laban, the time is up, and I want to marry Rachel now. So Laban gave a big feast and invited all their neighbors. But that evening he brought Leah to Jacob, who married her and spent the night with her. Laban also gave Zilpah to Leah as her servant woman. The next morning, Jacob found out that he married Leah, and he asked Laban, why did you do this to me? Didn't I work to get Rachel? Why did you trick me? Laban replied, in our country, the older daughter must get married first. After you spend this week with Leah, you may also marry Rachel, but you will have to work for me another 7 years. At the end of the week of celebration, Laban let Jacob marry Rachel, and he gave her his servant woman, Bilhah. Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, but he had to work another 7 years for Laban. The Lord knew that Jacob loved Rachel more than he did Leah, and so he gave children to Leah, but not to Rachel. Leah gave birth to a son and named him Reuben. Then she said, the Lord has taken away my sorrow. Now my husband will love me more than he does Rachel. She had a second son and named him Simeon, because she said, the Lord has heard that my husband doesn't love me. When Leah's third son was born, she said, now my husband will hold me close. So this son was named Levi. She had one more son and named him Judah, because she said, I'll praise the Lord.
There's so many things wrong with that situation. I just don't think I can stand it. Oh my gosh.
Comments. Yeah.
No, seriously. Oh, I just can't even fathom something like that. All right. On a happy note, so we are super duper excited to have you here on Doc and Queenie Bible Trivia. Whether you are watching us live or on the replay, we appreciate you joining us as our faithful friends on purpose. We bring this to you every Thursday evening at 7 o'clock Central. And now we are headed for Genesis chapter 30. Let's see what happens to this topic.
Okay.
Why did Rachel envy her sister? Leah was Jacob's first wife. Leah had children and Rachel didn't. Rachel had children and Leah didn't, or Leah had the better maid? Why did Rachel envy her sister? Leah was Jacob's first wife. Leah had children and Rachel didn't. Rachel had children and Leah didn't, or Leah had the better maid?
Genesis 30, verse 1. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister.
What was the name of Rachel's maid? Rebecca, Rosa, Leah, or Bilhah? What was the name of Rachel's maid? Rebecca, Rosa, Leah, or Bilhah?
Genesis 30, verse 3. Then she said, Here's my servant Bilhah. Go into her so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her. Haven't people done this before?
You think they would learn, right? You think they would learn the lesson.
Yep.
What was the name of Leah's maid? Zilpah, Sarah, Dana, or Dinah? What was the name of Leah's maid? Zilpah, Sarah, Dana, or Dinah?
Genesis 30, verse 9. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as a wife. Gosh.
When things don't just work out, just share ladies. It's okay. Oh my gosh. Rachel wanted some of these that Leah's son found in the field: elderberries, mandrakes, figs, or pomegranates. Rachel wanted some of these that Leah's son found in the field: elderberries, mandrakes, figs, or pomegranates.
In the days of the wheat harvest, Genesis 30, verse 14. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. What is a mandrake? Do we know what that is?
We will look that up while you are reading.
Okay.
Who found this fruit? Reuben, Dan, Gad, or Issachar? Who found this fruit? Reuben, Dan, Gad, or Issachar?
Genesis 30, verse 14. In the days of wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah.
It is the root of a plant historically derived from plants the genus Mandragora, found in Mediterranean region, or from other species such as Bryony alba, the English mandrake, which have similar properties. These plants are roots obtained, also called mandrakes.
Okay, that means nothing to us.
Right, but the root of a plant. So I just don't understand why that's a biggie. Who found this fruit? Reuben? We already did that, sorry. Okay. Rachel gave birth to this son: Gilead, Joseph, Gad, or Reuben. Rachel gave birth to this son: Gilead, Joseph, Gad, or Reuben. 22 and 23.
Thank you.
Actually, this goes all the way to 24, so you can do all three verses if that's okay.
Sure. Genesis 30, verse 22 through 24. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. And she called his name Joseph, saying, May the Lord add to me another son.
What did Jacob tell Laban he wanted to do? Go back to his own country, buy some land, become partners with him, or marry his other daughter? What did Jacob tell Laban he wanted to do? Go back to his own country, buy some land, become partners with him, marry his other daughter?
Genesis 30, verse 25. As soon as Rachel had bore Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, Send me away that I may go to my own home and country.
Laban said the Lord had blessed him always for Jacob's sake, since he kept God's commandments, since he hearkened to God's voice. Laban said the Lord had blessed him always for Jacob's sake, since he kept God's commandments, or since he hearkened to hear God's voice.
Genesis 30, verse 27. But Laban said to him, if I have found favor in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you.
What did Jacob take as wages? 20 yoke of oxen, 30 she-goats, the livestock that was speckled, the livestock that was not speckled. What did Jacob take as wages? 20 yoke of oxen, 30 she-goats, the livestock that was speckled, the livestock that was not speckled.
Genesis 30, verse 32. Let me pass through all your flock today, removing from it every speckled and spotted sheep, and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages.
How were their cattle described? All were strong, all were feeble. Jacob's were strong and Laban's feeble. Laban's were strong and Jacob's feeble. How were their cattle described? All were strong, all were feeble. Jacob's were strong and Laban's feeble, or Laban's were strong and Jacob's feeble.
All right, I will need a verse on that one.
42.
Okay, I didn't get that far. I was like, I'm reading and I'm reading. Genesis 30, verse 42. But for the feebler of the flock, he would not lay them there. So the feebler would be Laban's, and the stronger Jacob's.
That is the end of chapter 30, Doc.
All right. Genesis chapter 30 in the Contemporary English Version reads, Problems between Rachel and Leah. Rachel was very jealous of Leah for having children, and she said to Jacob, I'll die if you don't give me some children. But Jacob became upset with Rachel and answered, Don't blame me. I'm not God. Here, take my servant Bilhah, Rachel told him. Have children by her and let them be born on my knees to show that they are mine. Then Rachel let Jacob marry Bilhah, and they had a son. Rachel named him Dan because she said, God has answered my prayers. He judged in my favor and has given me a son. When Bilhah and Jacob had a second son, Rachel said, I've struggled hard with my sister and I've won. So she named the boy Naphtali. When Leah realized she could not have any more children, she let Jacob marry her servant Zilpah, and they had a son. I'm really lucky, Leah said, and she named the boy Gad. When they had another son, Leah exclaimed, I'm happy now, and all the women will say how happy I am. So she named him Asher. During the time of the wheat harvest, Reuben found some love flowers and took them to his mother Leah. Rachel asked Leah for some of them, but Leah said, It's bad enough that you stole my husband. Now you want my son's love flowers too? All right, Rachel answered, let me have the flowers and you can sleep with Jacob tonight. That evening, when Jacob came in from the fields, Leah told him, You're sleeping with me tonight. I hired you with my son's love flowers. They slept. I know. It's just like they slept together that night, and God answered Leah's prayers by giving her a fifth son. Leah shouted, God has rewarded me letting Jacob marry my servant. And she named the boy Issachar. When Leah had another son, she exclaimed, God has given me a wonderful gift, and my husband will praise me for giving him 6 sons. So she named the boy Zebulun. Later, Leah had a daughter and named her Dinah. Finally, God remembered Rachel. He answered her prayer by giving her a son. God has taken away my disgrace, she said. I'll name the boy Joseph, and I'll pray that the Lord will give me another son. After Joseph was born, Jacob said to Laban, Release me from our agreement and let me return to my own country. You know how I've worked hard for you. I've worked for you. So let me take my wives and my children and leave. But Laban told him, If you really are my friends, stay on and I'll pay you whatever you ask. I'm sure the Lord has blessed me because of you. Jacob answered, You've seen how hard I've worked for you, and you know how your flocks and herds, not herbs. I've been gardening too long.
Yes, you are.
Your flocks and herds have grown under my care. You didn't have much before I came, but the Lord has blessed everything I have ever done for you. Now it's time for me to start looking out for my own family. How much do you want me to pay you? Laban asked. Then Jacob told him, I don't want you to pay me anything. Just do one thing, and I'll take care of your sheep and goats. Let me go through your flocks and herds and take the sheep and goats that are either spotted or speckled, and the black lambs. That's all you need to give me. In the future, you can easily find out if I've been honest. Just look and see if my animals are either spotted or speckled, or if the lambs are black. If they aren't, they've been stolen from you. I agree to that, was Laban's response. Before the end of the day, Laban had separated his spotted and speckled animals and the black lambs from the others, and had put his sons in charge of them. Then Laban made Jacob keep the rest of the sheep and goats at a distance of 3 days' journey. Jacob cut branches from some poplar trees and from some almond and evergreen trees. He peeled off part of the bark and made the branches look spotted and speckled. Then he put the branches where the sheep and goats would see them while they were drinking from the water trough. The goats mated there in front of the branches, and their young were spotted and speckled. Some of the sheep that Jacob was keeping for Laban were already spotted, and when the others were ready to mate, he made sure that they faced in the direction of the spotted and black ones. In this way, Jacob built up a flock of sheep for himself and did not put them with the other sheep. When the stronger sheep were mating near the drinking place, Jacob made sure that the spotted branches were there, but he would not put out the branches when the weaker animals were mating. So Jacob got all of the healthy animals, and Laban got what was left. Jacob soon became rich and successful, and he owned many sheep, goats, camels, and donkeys, as well as a lot of slaves. Yeah.
Speechless comes to mind, but okay.
The whole polygamy thing, and I mean, that's throughout the entire Bible.
Yeah, absolutely. That it's always very tough to have that conversation because you can't relate to how that rolls now. So
nope.
We better
much less pronounce their names.
Yeah. Yeah, that's always the fun part too. Their name is what? Yeah. Debbie actually enjoyed that last week as well, and how we just go She
probably is pronouncing them pretty easily.
Yeah, she gave it a shot. All right, my friends, thank you for joining us. Doc and Queenie Bible Trivia. We are headed now to Genesis chapter 31. Where did God instruct Jacob to go? Back to his father's land, to Egypt, to Sodom, or to his uncle Ezra's house? Where did God instruct Jacob to go? Back to his father's land, to Egypt, to Sodom, or to his uncle Ezra's house? This is verse 3.
Okay. Genesis 31, verse 3. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you.
How many times did Jacob say Laban had changed his wages? 2 times, 3, 5, or 10? How many times did Jacob say Laban had changed his wages? 2 times, 3, 5, or 10?
I'm having trouble, Queenie.
Number 7.
Number 7. Genesis 31, verse 7. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me.
What was stolen from Laban? Gold, silver, coins, images of gods. What was stolen from Laban? Gold, silver, coins, images of gods. 19.
Yeah, they're making big jumps on these questions now.
Yeah.
I'm so used to like hanging around 2 or 3 of the same verses.
Yeah.
Genesis 31, verse 19. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods.
Here we go. Who stole them?
Oops.
Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Jacob's eldest son. Who stole them? Jacob, Leah, Rachel, Jacob's eldest son.
Genesis 31, verse 19. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods.
How many days did Laban pursue after Jacob and his family? 1, 3, 5, or 7? How many days did Laban pursue after Jacob and his family? 1, 3, 5, 7.
Genesis 31, verse 23. He took his kinsmen with him and pursued him for 7 days and followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead.
Why did Laban not harm Jacob? He was afraid of him. He was afraid of his father. He couldn't catch him. God told him not to in a dream. Why did Laban not harm Jacob? He was afraid of him. He was afraid of his father. He couldn't catch him. God told him not to in a dream.
Genesis 31, verse 24, I think. But God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream by night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Didn't say anything about harm in this one.
Yeah, but that was right. That was right. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Where did Laban find the stolen items? In Leah's tent, in Jacob's tent, in Rachel's tent. He didn't find them. Where did Laban find the stolen items? In Leah's tent, in Jacob's tent, in Rachel's tent, or he didn't find them?
Found it. Genesis 31, verse 34. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent, but did not find them.
How long did Jacob serve Laban? 10 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle, 14 years for his daughters and 6 for cattle, 7 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle, 14 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle. How long did Jacob serve Laban? 10 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle, 14 years for his daughters and 6 for cattle, 7 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle, or 14 years for his daughters and 7 for cattle.
Genesis 31, verse 41. These 20 years I've been in your house, I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock.
What did Laban want to make with Jacob? A nation, a covenant, a house, or war? What did Laban want to make with Jacob? A nation, a covenant, a house, or war?
Genesis 31, verse 44. Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I.
What did they do as a sign of this? Shook hands, heaped stones, signed a treaty, mixed their blood. What did they do as a sign of this? Shook hands, heaped stones, signed a treaty, mixed their blood.
Genesis 31, verses 45 and 46. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap. And they ate there by the heap.
That felt like a very fast chapter, Doc, but we are finished with 31.
Wow. Okay. It did. Maybe because we didn't have to try and pronounce people's names.
That's always a possibility.
All right. So, contemporary English version of Genesis 31. Jacob heard that Laban's sons were complaining. Jacob is now a rich man, and he got everything he owns from our father. Jacob also noticed that Laban was not as friendly as he had been before. One day the Lord said, Jacob, go back to your relatives in the land of your ancestors, and I will be with you. Jacob sent for Rachel and Leah to meet him in the pasture where he kept his sheep, and told them, your father isn't as friendly with me as he used to be, but the God my ancestors worship has been on my side. You know that I have worked hard for your father, and that he keeps cheating me by changing my wages time and time again. Um, Sorry, I had a fly just fly by me. But God has protected me. When your father said the speckled sheep would be my wages, all of them were speckled. And when he said the spotted ones would be mine, all of them were spotted. That's how God has taken sheep and goats from your father and given them to me. Once, when the flocks were mating, I dreamed that all the rams were either spotted or speckled. Then God's angel called me by my name. I answered, and he said, notice that all the rams are either spotted or speckled. I know everything Laban is doing to you, and I am the God you worshipped at Bethel, when you poured olive oil on a rock and made a promise to me. Leave here at once and return to the land where you were born. Rachel and Leah said to Jacob, there's nothing left for us to inherit from our father. He treats us like foreigners and has even cheated us out of the bride price that should have been ours. So do whatever God tells you to do. Even the property God took from our father and gave to you really belongs to us and our children. Then Jacob, his wives, and his children got on camels and left northern Syria for the home of his father Isaac in Canaan. Jacob took along all his flocks, herds, and other property. Before Rachel left, she stole the household idols, while Laban was out shearing his sheep. Jacob tricked Laban the Aramean by not saying that he intended to leave. When Jacob crossed the Euphrates River and headed for the hill country of Gilead, he took with him everything he owned. 3 days later, Laban found out that Jacob had gone, so he took some of his relatives along and chased after Jacob for 7 days before catching up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But God appeared to Laban in a dream that night and warned, don't say a word to Jacob, don't make a threat or a promise. Jacob had set up camp in the hill country of Gilead when Laban and his relatives came and set up camp in another part of the hill country. Laban went to Jacob and said, look what you've done. You've tricked me and run off with my daughters like a kidnapper. Why did you sneak away without telling me? I would have given you a going away party with singing and with music on tambourines and harps. You didn't even give me a chance to kiss my own grandchildren and daughters goodbye. That was really foolish. I could easily hurt you, but the God your father worshipped has warned me not to make any threats or promises. I can understand why you were eager to return to your father, but why did you have to steal my idols? Jacob answered, I left secretly because I was afraid you would take your daughters from me by force. If you find that any one of us has taken your idols, I'll have that person killed. Let your relatives be witnesses. Show me what belongs to you, and you can take it back. Jacob did not realize that Rachel had stolen the household idols. Laban searched the tents of Jacob, Leah, and the 2 servant women, but did not find the idols. Then he went to Rachel's tent. She had already hidden them in the cushion she used as a saddle and was sitting on. Laban searched everywhere and did not find them. Rachel said, Father, please don't be angry with me for not getting up. I'm having my period. Laban kept on searching, but still did not find the idols. Jacob became very angry and said to Laban, what have I done wrong? Have I committed some crime? Is that why you hunted me down? After searching through everything I have, did you find anything of yours? If so, put it here, where your relatives and mine can see it. Then we can decide what to do. In all the 20 years that I've worked for you, not one of your sheep or goats has ever had a miscarriage, and I've never eaten even one of your rams. If a wild animal killed one of your sheep or goats, I paid for it myself. In fact, you demanded the full price, whether the animal was killed during the day or night. I sweated every day, and I couldn't sleep at night because of the cold. I had to work 14 of these 20 long years to earn your 2 daughters and another 6 years to buy your sheep and goats. During that time, you kept changing my wages. If the fearsome God worshipped by Abraham and my father Isaac had not been on my side, you would have sent me away without a thing. But God saw my hard work, and he knew the trouble I was in, so he helped me. Then last night he told me how wrong you were. Laban said to Jacob, Leah and Rachel are my daughters, and their children belong to me. All these sheep you're taking are really mine too. In fact, everything you have belongs to me. But there is nothing I can do to keep my daughters and their children. So I am ready to make an agreement with you, and we will pile up some large rocks here to remind us of the agreement. After Jacob had set up a large rock, he told his men to get some more rocks and pile them up next to it. Then Jacob and Laban ate a meal together beside the rocks. This is a really long chapter. I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah.
Laban named the pile of rocks Jegar-Sedahus, I guess. But Jacob named it Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "This pile of rocks will remind us of our agreement." That's why the place was named Gilead. Laban also said, "This pile of rocks means that the Lord will watch us both while we are apart from each other." So the place was also named Mizpah. Then Laban said, "If you mistreat my daughters or marry other women, I may not know about it. But remember, God is watching us. Both this pile of rocks and this large rock have been set up between us as a reminder. I must never go past them to attack you, and you must never come past them to attack me. My father Nahor, your grandfather Abraham, and their ancestors all worship the same God, and he will make sure that we each keep the agreement." Then Jacob made a promise in the name of the fearsome God his father Isaac had worshipped. Jacob killed an animal and offered it as a sacrifice there on the mountain, and he invited his men to eat with him. After the meal, they spent the night on the mountain. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his daughters and his grandchildren goodbye. Then he left to go back home.
It really is amazing, honestly, the difference in the versions of the Bible, because even from just this quiz process, you get a different flavor when you actually hear it read in that version.
CEVDCI.
That's the one. Yeah. All right. We've got time just for one more chapter. So let's get on to Genesis chapter 32. Here we go. Who met Jacob on his way? Isaac, his mother, angels, or the devil? Who met Jacob on his way? Isaac, his mother, angels, or the devil?
Genesis 32, verse 1. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him.
Who did Jacob send messengers to? Esau, Laban, Rachel, or the king of Syria? Who did Jacob send messengers to? Esau, Laban, Rachel, or the king of Syria?
Genesis 32, verse 3. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir.
Who did Esau bring with him to meet Jacob? Laban, Rachel, 100 men, 400 men. Who did Esau bring with him to meet Jacob? Laban, Rachel, 100 men, 400 men.
Genesis 32, verse 6. And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him."
What did Jacob do when he heard this? He hurried to meet Esau. He turned around and went back. He divided the people and flocks. He armed himself. What did Jacob do when he heard this? He hurried to meet Esau. He turned around and went back. He divided the people and flocks. He armed himself.
Genesis 32, verse 7. Then Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people who were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two camps.
Why did he do that? He missed his family. He was preparing to fight, to work for Laban, or if one band was killed, the other may escape. Why did he do that? He missed his family. He was preparing to fight, to work for Laban, or if one band was killed, the other may escape.
Genesis 32, verse 8. Thinking, if Esau comes to the one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape.
After Jacob sent his family across the brook and was left alone, What did he do? Cried, planned a strategy for battle, wrestled with a man, ate a meal. After Jacob sent his family across the brook and was left alone, what did he do? Cried, planned a strategy for battle, wrestled with a man, or ate a meal?
I've lost the verse, Queenie.
24.
Yep, I'm only in 10. That makes sense. Genesis 32, verse 24. I wasn't even close. Not even, wow. And Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day.
What part of Jacob's body was touched and put out of joint? His thigh, his ankle, his knee, his elbow. What part of Jacob's body was touched and put out of joint? His thigh, his ankle, his knee, his elbow.
Genesis 32, verse 25. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him.
Jacob would not let go until he was given money, dawn, he was blessed, his family returned. Jacob would not let go until he was given money, dawn, he was blessed, or his family returned.
Genesis 32, verse 26. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me."
What was Jacob's name changed to? Abraham, Moses, Isaac, Israel. What was Jacob's name changed to? Abraham, Moses, Isaac, Israel.
Genesis 32, verse 28. Then he said, "Your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men, and have prevailed."
Who did Jacob say he had seen face to face? An angel, God, Adam, or Abraham? Who did Jacob say he had seen face to face? An angel, God, Adam, or Abraham?
Genesis 32, verse 30. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered."
Amen and amen. That is the end of chapter 32, Doc.
All right. Should I give it an attempt to read it?
Sure. If you get to any words that are scary, just
All right. So, Genesis 32 in the contemporary English version. As Jacob was on his way back home, some of God's angels came and met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he named the place Mahanaim. Yeah. Oh boy, wow. Jacob sent messengers on ahead to Esau, who lived in the land of Seir, also known as Edom. Jacob told them to say to Esau, "Master, I am your servant. I have lived with Laban all this time, and now I own cattle, donkeys, and sheep, as well as many slaves. Master, I am sending these messengers in the hope that you will be kind to me." When the messengers returned, they told Jacob, "We went to your brother Esau, and now he is heading this way with 400 men." Jacob was so frightened that he divided his people, sheep, cattle, and camels into two groups. He thought, if Esau attacks one group, perhaps the other can escape. Then Jacob prayed, "You, Lord, are the God who was worshipped by my grandfather Abraham and by my father Isaac. You told me to return home to my family, and you promised to be with me and make me successful. I don't deserve all the good things you have done for me, your servant. When I first crossed the Jordan, I had only my walking stick, but now I have two large groups of people and animals. Please rescue me from my brother. I am afraid he will come and attack not only me, but my wives and children as well. But you have promised that I would be a success, and that someday it will be as hard to count my descendants as it is to count the grains of sand along the seashore. After Jacob had spent the night there, he chose some animals as gifts for Esau: 200 female goats and 20 males, 200 female sheep and 20 males, 30 female camels with their young, 40 cows and 10 bulls, and 20 female donkeys and 10 males. Jacob put servants in charge of each herd and told them, "Go ahead of me and keep a space between each herd." Then he said to the servant in charge of the first herd, "When Esau meets you, he will ask whose servant you are. He will want to know where you are going and who owns those animals in front of you. So tell him they belong to your servant Jacob, who is coming this way. He is sending them as a gift to his master Esau." Jacob also told the men in charge of the second and third herds and those who followed to say the same thing when they met Esau. And Jacob told them to be sure to say that he was right behind them. Jacob hoped the gifts would make Esau friendly, so Esau would be glad to see him when they met. Jacob's men took the gifts on ahead of him, but he spent the night in camp. Jacob got up in the middle of the night and took his wives, his 11 children, and everything he owned across to the other side of the Jabbok River for safety. Afterwards, Jacob went back and spent the rest of the night alone. A man came and fought with Jacob until just before daybreak. When the man saw that he could not win, he struck Jacob on the hip and threw it out of joint. They kept on wrestling until the man said, "Let go of me. It's almost daylight." "You can't go until you bless me," Jacob replied. Then the man asked, "What is your name?" "Jacob," he answered. The man said, "From now on, your name will no longer be Jacob. You will be called Israel, because you have wrestled with God and with men, and you have won." Jacob said, "Now tell me your name." "Don't you know who I am?" he asked, and he blessed Jacob. Jacob said, "I have seen God face to face, and I am still alive." So he named the place Peniel. The sun was coming up as Jacob was leaving Peniel. He was limping because he had been struck on the hip, and the muscle on his hip joint had been injured. That's why even today the people of Israel don't eat the hip muscle of any animal.
Hmm. Okay.
So there you go.
Never knew that.
Me neither.
Never knew that. That is amazing. And it's amazing what you can actually learn from the Old Testament. And because obviously there's a flip that happens with the new, but I always think it's interesting to start at the beginning, so to speak.
Oh, totally. Totally. And every time you read through it, you learn something like,
Absolutely.
I didn't realize they don't eat that.
No, I didn't. I never actually heard that. So that's amazing because it really does put it in a different perspective. Well, Doc, as you can see, we are at the top of the hour at a little scooch past. So I think it's time for you to take us home.
All right. Thank you, Queenie. And thank you for everyone who is watching or watching on the replay. Doc and Queenie Bible Trivia is every Thursday night at 7 p.m., or you can check us out on Facebook Live on Mondays at high noon. Do that every time. Have a blessed and wonderful weekend, and we will see you either next Monday or Thursday. Thank you, Queenie, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Doc. Bye for now.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.